Hey, all my Pisces friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today to talk about Saturn's transit into your first house of Pisces and Pluto tipping its toe into your 12th house of Aquarius this March 2023. These are going to be significant energy changes that even people who don't study astrology will feel this energy shift. Before I start, I want to say that these videos are based on whole sign Western astrology. So I'm looking at Pisces rising. This is also applicable for Pisces moon and Pisces sun. If you don't know your rising sign, you would want to go to one of the free birth calculators on the internet. You just need your exact time of birth and location, and you can determine what your chart is. Also, for this purposes of this video, all the times and dates I refer to are Pacific time zone, so please adjust for your location in the world. All right, Pisces, let's talk about Saturn moving into your first house. This is a significant shift. Saturn, by nature, rules responsibility and discipline and endurance and building sustainable structures on the human platform. It doesn't like potential. It doesn't like what ifs and dangly loose energies. Saturn wants to tighten everything up, cross all its T's, dot all the I's, and make sure that the structures that it's building will last throughout time. Saturn rules history. Saturn rules tradition. It rules authority and government. It rules the father. It rules old age and the aging process, the last chapters of life. It rules the manifestation of material wealth. It's very good at that. It also rules leadership and public status. I'm just checking the notes here real quick. So when Saturn initially moves into Pisces, it may feel a little jarring. Saturn spent the last 4.5 to 5 years in two signs that it has rulership over. First Capricorn, and then it co-rules Aquarius, which is your 12th house and where Pluto will be entering and where Saturn has come from. So I believe this last few years, there's been a review of a lot of things for Pisces that have been historic patterns, things that have happened traditionally. And when Saturn moves into your sign, it's going to feel like a reality check, where illusions are broken, deceptions are revealed, and a stronger truth is presented to you. And I don't think this is a negative thing. I think it's an opportunity to see where the natural compassion and empathy of Pisces could be overly compassionate, overly empathetic. And in some ways, that's a self-sabotaging energy. And Saturn doesn't want to do that. Saturn's going to want to remove any crutches, any illusions you have, any energies that have been actually not serving you, but rather being an erosive energy. As we look at the 12th house, which Pisces rules by nature, it's a house where things dissolve. The physical body dissolves and the soul emerges back into the collective. It is a house where we spend time alone. We spend time sleeping in the bedroom. This is a place where ashrams, places of religious worship, places of research, hospitals, prisons, orphanages, museums and libraries, because they're places where we are quiet and we spend time alone on a focused subject. It rules old age homes. It rules places where we actually store things and store people. We put criminals, we store them in prison. We put old people in old folks' homes. I know it sounds rather harsh, but it's part of the human experience. Not everything is always warm and fuzzy. And so because of this lack of warm and fuzzy, sometimes Pisces gets overwhelmed by the challenges of the human experience, where it wants to retreat and it wants to spend time alone. So I believe that as Saturn enters your first house, there's going to be a real review of historic patterns, of dynamics of how you've operated that have been maybe effective at one point, but they may be losing their potency as you have evolved throughout this lifetime. Saturn, from February 28th until it moves into Pisces, will spend time at the anaretic degree of Aquarius, which is the 29th degree. And this 29th degree is an opportunity to master the higher realms of thought. Saturn co-rules Aquarius, but it also is ruled by Uranus. And Uranus is going to come into play here because this is about the thinking outside the box and starting to muse about things that have been otherwise maybe not paid attention to. So I kind of want to offer it this way, because I think of Pisces as such a cooperative sign, such a compassionate sign, that sometimes the boundaries between me and you are blurred to a point where I don't know where they are. And Saturn is going to come in and want to make those boundaries clearer. Because if for some reason the blurred boundaries are disempowering you or leading you down a path that is not serving you, Saturn isn't going to like that very much. And it's going to really bring that into such a focus that you cannot ignore it. Saturn will traverse 0 to 7 degrees Pisces in the year 2023. And this is significant to me because the year 2023 is a 7 year. Additionally, we have had a series of full moons. It started with the Aries full moon in Libra season and will culminate with the Libra full moon in Aries season for a total of 7 full moons covering the whole first 7 houses of the zodiac. This is bringing to culmination and bringing to light a certain pattern that we have had and an opportunity to shift that pattern. The number 7, while it has a Libra resonance in its energy, it is also numerology wise, it is a number that represents introspection, but from an intellectual point of view. That's where we see the Libra balance here, where we're not necessarily emotionally assessing, but assessing from a place of intellect, of analyzing a situation, and rather than villainizing it or making it a hero, it's a piece of information. And I think that's really important because Pisces is so emotional that if you find information that feels negative or lacking, we don't want to hang your hat on that. We want to just use it as information to move the story forward. A little bit of the challenge of the Pisces energy is there's a feeling of being victimized. There's a feeling of lack of power because it's the house of the unseen. Traditionally, the 12th house is called the house of self-undoing, the house of troubles, the house of karma, and the house of hidden enemies. And unfortunately, sometimes those hidden enemies are within ourselves because they're the imprints that have been given to us by those that fostered our upbringing. And we inadvertently have started to own those imprints rather than assessing if they are actually true and applicable to who we are. So that's a bit of a challenging side to the Pisces energy. On the flip side of that, it is amazingly creative, amazingly warm and inviting. There is this energy, Venus is exalted in Pisces. Venus rules beauty and art and a comfort and good food. And so here I'm seeing the Pisces energy being very creative. And if you've been holding yourself back from anything you want to create, Saturn's going to come into your first house and kind of throw a wet blanket on any illusions you have. Illusions of being disempowered, illusions of not being palatable, illusions of not being good enough. I think this is where Saturn is serving you and where the two combine so beautifully, because Saturn is offering a historic look at how we have been fostered and nurtured throughout this lifetime. And Pisces is giving us an opportunity to break ancestral karmic ties. And I don't mean that in a way where we need to break relationships as we break the emotional investment in the imbalance that those relationships sometimes offer us. Sometimes we believe we're in a safe place, but that safe place, because maybe, our partner is paying the bills, and yet maybe that partnership is not exactly as warm and loving as we'd want it to be, but yet we feel safe because we've got a roof over our head and the appearance of money in the bank. And yet it's all tethered to somebody else's real wants and desires. That's where I'm getting at, because I feel like this house of the hidden enemies are really those unconscious imprints that drive our decision-making process. And here Saturn's coming in and going, let's look at those hidden doors and see what's behind them, because I want to blow them open, clear the air, and then move the story forward to build in a more concrete way, whatever it is you want to experience. And with Saturn in your first house, this is experiencing yourself as a formidable energy moving forward. We also have Pluto visiting the anaretic degree of Capricorn from February 11th until March 22nd, when it will move into Aquarius for a brief period of time before it moves back into Capricorn. So here's Pluto in your 11th house, saying, really looking at what is the psychological drives that you have to create your 11th house dynamic. The 11th house, while it naturally rules the World Wide Web and large systems, like the nervous system and the, technology and huge systems, that affect humanity as a whole versus the individual. So now here where I'm seeing this is where I'm looking at that 29th degree is, how am I perceiving that? How are my thoughts? Because the 29 again reduces down to an 11, the master number of thought. Pluto rules the deep toxic energies that are imprinted upon us in that psychological dynamic. It's a house where we can give up our power and control for the sense of what we appears again to be safety and security. So I think we're going to see an illumination here and an ability to use your intuitive body in a more grounded, earthly way in this plane, trusting your inner knowing and being more willing to look at where there's been self-deception, hoping that other person will step up their game. And now you have an opportunity to individualize from that, which is why I think Pluto is entering your 12th house of of Aquarius. So as Pluto spends those almost, 3 weeks or a little over, 5 weeks at that anaretic degree, the structures that you've been building are going to come up for review, and you're going to see them in a way that I think will reveal an opportunity to empower yourself more than maybe you have been doing. Pluto rules, most of the time Pluto is talked about as death and destruction. The very first thing they say is decay. It jars, it traumatizes the human, but it traumatizes the human because when the human is given up their power, they feel as if they're directionless when whoever's been holding the power reins is removed. Of course, there's physical trauma that can happen in this house, but I'm really looking at more of a psychological imprint here, because as we're aware of our thoughts and we focus our thoughts, and the nature of Pluto is an intense focus, a single-minded focus of thoughts. And as we pay attention to the idea that Pluto is really looking at the depths of what is hidden. The planet itself has a 600-mile heart on the face of the planet that you can see from space. And there's this tumultuous chemistry underneath it. I don't know what the actual elements are, but it gives this sort of white teal hue to it as it erupts to the surface, creating this heart. So what I have determined and what Spirit has shown me is that Pluto is saying, follow your heart, not your imprint. And while your imprint has influence, your awareness of the imprint will help you remove any self-sabotaging energies that you're purporting. Anywhere you feel that you've made, concessions that are not aligned to your truth, there is the challenge with the Pisces energy is there was wanting to escape, and that escape could be in the form of addiction to drugs and alcohol, addiction to cleaning, addiction to shopping, anywhere we escape. So it could be even addiction to food. There's so many elements where we can escape. And here, these two energies of Saturn and Pluto are saying no more escapism. Now we want to sit down. We would just want to look at everything from a point of view of information. It's not about shame. It's not about regret. It's not about judgment. It's just a simple part of the journey of the human, where we come into this planet under the veil of unknowing and inadvertently look at other humans for how we define ourselves, how we view ourselves is in relation to those other people. Now we infuse the idea that Pisces is watery and fluid and floats back and forth very easily. This is where it gets a little bit challenging, because you can inadvertently absorb yourself or allow yourself to be absorbed into another's agenda. And this is going to be an opportunity to be complementary to the other's agenda, and yet still have your own that will give you a sense of fulfillment and accomplishment. So I think this is super powerful. Let's go through some dates for Pluto. Pluto will enter Aquarius, as I said, on March 23rd. And it will stay at the 0 degree of Aquarius. It's not going any further than that. That energy is going to be very powerful. It's the critical degree. And it will retrograde on the 1st of May, entering back into Capricorn, your 11th house, on June 11th. It will remain retrograde until it goes direct in October, finally re-entering Aquarius in January of 2024. So this revisit into your hopes and your dreams that's represented in Capricorn, your 11th house, this willingness to look at that 11th house is really a house that rewards over time. It's an Upachaya house. So the structures that have been built there, while they may be up for renovation, they still have the potentials to create bounty. But part of that is your willingness to look at what isn't working, or where you've given up your power to someone else or the collective or a structure you perceive to be more powerful than your own intention. I hate to use this term, but I can't help it. Saturn is going to want you to hang up any disempowerment, any victimhood, any martyrdom. Saturn just doesn't care. And the reason it doesn't care is because Saturn hops and skips and jumps over all those very natural human emotions to the end game. And it sees that end game as more than worthy of the efforting or the emotional journey to that end game. And sometimes that emotional journey is disappointment initially, but that disappointment can be very motivating and inspiring to move our story forward. So let's talk about some dates that's going to take place for Pisces. Again, we see Saturn on the 7th of March moving in to Pisces in your first house at the 0 degree, and it will stay at the 0 degree for about 8 days. So this is going to feel so different than it has. It's going to be like, what happened? Is there a storm somewhere I can't see? That's how obvious it will be. On the 23rd, Pluto is going to be at that 0 degree in your 12th house. Pardon me. This is akin to like a baby being born, where the womb is all warm and cozy and safe and secure, and then you're thrust out into this air that makes this cold feeling. So Saturn's going to feel like a wet blanket, and Pluto's going to feel like, why do I have to go through that again? Why can't I just push that back into the closet or into the recesses? No, it's up for renewal because it's up for transformation. So it goes from something that feels crappy into the manure that makes your garden grow. Because that 12th house of past lives is not always the negative. Sometimes those are past life talents that we have not fostered. So as Pluto moves into your 12th house of Aquarius, you could be liberated from any doubt or any trepidation and feel much more connected to the truth of who you are and be willing to foster that. Okay, so now on April 19th, we're going to see the first eclipse of 2023. It's a solar eclipse at 29 degrees, 50 minutes Aries. This is your second house on the cusp of your third house. This to me is, this solar eclipses are always very powerful, and they usher in what I call fated events, which are fated choices. There are dynamics and circumstances that come together that give me an opportunity to make a choice. And here there may be for Pisces a choice between you asserting your own individual skills, Aries second house, and then how that might affect the community that you have built in your third house of Taurus. And we're going to see a lot more activity happening over here in your third house as we move forward into the spring. Because we're going to see some other planets. Jupiter is going to move into your third house, offering expansion and renovation of your beliefs. On May 1st, Pluto goes retrograde at 0 degrees Aquarius in your 12th house. I talked about those dates already. And then on the 5th of May, we're going to have a lunar eclipse at 14 degrees Scorpio in your 9th house. This lunar eclipse is going to play back to the themes of the eclipses during the Scorpio-Taurus axis in the fall of 2022. Additionally, this lunar eclipse is a full moon, which is an opposition between the moon and the sun. The sun will be in Taurus at an exact conjunction with Uranus at 14 degrees. This is very powerful because there's a liberating feeling. There's an illumination and sort of this, the 14th degree is the Taurus degree. So I think this could be where I really want to start to birth myself out into a version of myself that feels very authentic to me, not how other people have perceived me. Right now, I'm not kind of going into Pisces as birthing themselves out into the physical, creating a network. This feels more like it's an interior job where I'm examining my own psychological apparatus and characteristics and traits, and then redefining them to match where I've grown into versus where I've come from, which is why I think all this, this eclipse is in your 9th house of beliefs. What do I believe about myself? It's in Scorpio, which is ruled by Pluto. Pluto rules power and control. It rules the toxic bowels that carry dynamics that don't serve me, and it's time to excrete them. We've also seen the South Node be going through your 9th house for the last, I don't know, year and a half. And this is going to make a really powerful opportunity to renovate, to reevaluate, and to see the beauty of who you are. The 9th house rules the who am I, what am I, and why am I here? And here in Scorpio, this is really a very powerful opportunity to create in ways that you can't imagine, taking you into foreign dynamics that you could not have perceived. And this is not necessarily because you've moved your body from one place to another, but now your psyche has moved into foreign territories of being a powerful creator for yourself. And this is very foreign to Pisces. Pisces is so compassionate. Let me help you. Let me put you ahead of me, because I sit in the house of the unseen. There we go. Super great, super great. It also may, on some level, with the sun being and Uranus being in your 3rd house, it may liberate you from an old story when it comes in relation to your siblings, your cousins, or your workmates, teammates, the people within your neighborhood, the people you interact with on an everyday basis. On the 16th of May, Pluto again staying at that 0 degree. It's now retrograde in your 12th house, making a square to Jupiter that has just entered Taurus. So this is an exact square at 0 degrees, and Jupiter is starting to make a conjunction with the North Node. So I believe that a square is sort of this point in time when I'm having a really challenging conversation with a habitual way of me behaving, sort of this unconscious knee-jerk way of being, and then this awareness that I'm not really particularly proud of the knee-jerk, or I'm not really enjoying that. So I want to be intentional, but I have not rooted this intention. It still kind of feels a little bit conceptual, hence the Jupiter being in a square with the North Node, the North Node being a point we're reaching for, that we're not used to experiencing. And this is your skills birthed into the community, your sense of self-worth birthed into your environment, and trusting that at a level that you've never trusted it before. And that's why it feels tense, because a part of you is going to want to swim over to what's familiar, although Pluto isn't going to let that happen, at least not easily. And so when you acquiesce to Jupiter's expansion in that 3rd house and that North Node driving you, you know, making you voracious for that experience, you can kind of calm down the tension a little bit. On the 20th, we will see Mars moving into your 6th house of Leo. Mars has been in Gemini for quite some time. As I record this, it's still in Gemini. It will spend a period of time in Cancer. Both energies are not exactly aligned to Mars, meaning Mars is frustrated being in Gemini for such a long time, wants to move the story forward. And when it moves into Cancer, it's moving into a water sign. Oftentimes, fire and water make steam. But when Mars moves into Leo, it's going to feel at home again. And it's going to be about, what do I want? What do I feel is enjoyable? There is also the 6th house imprint here of where I am of service to other people, what I've enslaved myself to, as well as an element of my health involved here. It's making an opposition to Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, and that is making a T-square to Jupiter and the North Node, which are now both, I'm sorry, Jupiter is still at 1 degree, and the North Node is still at 3 degrees in your 3rd house. So this tension is sort of feels like a willingness to be brave within my own dynamic, my own what I want to birth in the world. Again, we're seeing Pluto in your 12th house of Aquarius making an opposition to the 6th house. So if you have inadvertently been a little heavy-handed with the spirits or any elements of escapism, that may come up, and Saturn may slap you on the wrist a little bit. Pluto saying, are you going to continue to run away from your psychological imprint, or are you willing to look at it without judgment? It's not about judgment. It's not about criticism. It's not about shame. It's about a piece of information that doesn't work for you. So as you garnish that information and then integrate that information into your psyche, you become a more powerful co-creator. So I really want to offer that. Mars and Pluto are complementary, always. They rule Scorpio, and so there's a brave element to digging deep into the power and control over my life, or how I'm asserting my power and control over others. And that influence of Mars entering Leo is going to be felt for a little less than 2 weeks. It's going to start around May 16th and be felt all the way through to the 28th of May. On June 2nd, Saturn in your 1st house will make a sextile to Jupiter and the North Node. We're seeing a real theme here of my beliefs, expanding upon my beliefs, giving life to the idea that there's more here for me than I've experienced. And Taurus is wanting to root that into the physical experience, and it's complementary to Saturn here. Saturn likes to build, Taurus likes to build. So the sextile is giving me an opportunity to revisit what I believe about myself and to move into what would appear to be foreign territory, because I've never felt so empowered before. Now, at the same time, this is making a trine aspect to the South Node in your 9th house of beliefs. It's naturally ruled by Jupiter. And here it is again, your 9th house is Scorpio. So this is a willingness to really capitalize on the evolution that you have been fostering this whole time, and now starting to give yourself maybe even a little pat on the back. Say, you know what? Maybe everything isn't perfect, but I'm well on my way. And Pluto moving into your 12th house will help reveal anything that's lurking underneath the surface, and then Saturn will give you the ability to build sustainable structures for moving forward. It's really very lovely when we get over this initial jarring energy of having cold water thrown all over us. On June 11th, Pluto re-enters Capricorn, and again, we talked about that earlier. On the 17th, Saturn starts its retrograde in your 1st house. Again, we are focusing on the 0 to 7 degrees. So early born Pisces and any planets that are squaring or opposing those early degrees of Pisces will come into play here. This is why the chart's so important, because that'll give you even more detail as to how this will specifically influence you. On the 18th, we will see Saturn now retrograde 7 degrees of Pisces, again, making a sextile to Jupiter at 7 degrees in Taurus. So you really have an opportunity to take all your creative energy, to get brave in how you want to birth those things out into the world. And really now is not about the actual birthing process. It's about the gestation of it. Because again, Pluto being in your 12th house, we want to look and see what the underbelly is. We want to allow that to be revealed so that we can take that information and transform it from the caterpillar to the butterfly. And in doing so, claim our power and move that into your first house. Because in 20 years, when Pluto moves into your first house, you're really going to be able to feel that transformation in your power in a way that may be very different from previous chapters of the Piscean energy. I believe the soul chooses in many ways the aspects that it incarnates to, because each aspect in the natal chart and the transits that will transpire as you live your journey of life are all playing to the highest vibration of who and what you can be. And it's only when we fall sort of prey to these human structures that repress us, that, disempower us. And I can't help but think of all the commercials on television that don't use the word if, but rather when your kidneys fail, when your eyes fall out, when this happens. It's very slippery slope, and we are being inundated with fears that are making us forget how powerful we are, forget that we have an immune system that inherently knows how to keep this apparatus in balance. And when we pay attention to that, and we pay attention to the power that lies beneath, and we foster a sense of support for that, even if we don't know exactly the idiosyncrasies, the every, ABC of it, we are actually building a stronger picture of this human experience and teeing up any subsequent lifetimes to be much more aligned to creating joy and happiness. So I want to offer this in closing for my Pisces. I think this is an opportunity during this springtime to really look at the relationships in your life, and if they are in some ways holding you back, if they are putting you in a place of service to others where you don't feel seen and you don't feel an exchange of energy as much as you would like. And as you are brave to look at those, calling upon your guides and your angels to help realign your focus so that you don't have to necessarily throw these things away, but rather find your power within the dynamic. This is a thing about Pisces. I feel like on some level, Pisces could be considered a collector. I feel like Pisces, when they start to care about something, they always want to care about it. And so many times they collect these energies around them that they feel compassion for, but inadvertently they're erosive to the actual Pisces themselves. So as you put yourself, and Saturn is going into your first house, and when you put yourself first, and then you're willing to kind of endure how others are like, wait a minute, what it's not about me anymore, it's about you now. Wait, you always talk about me. And that little disruptive journey can actually be a very high vibrational shift from one level of feeling valued to another level that's much more palatable and anchored into the 3D world. So that's what I have to say for my Pisces for this springtime. And these two planets, I really want to rewrite them because I don't think they're malefic. I think they appear malefic and difficult because they really break up structures that have been built on dynamics that are not serving everybody in balance. And as we, rather than villainize them or victimize ourselves to those dynamics, as we empower ourselves through them, through discernment, through our ability to look at a situation and decide how we feel about it, this is really going to set a tone moving forward, and it could liberate you from a lot of karmic stuff that you're not even aware of. And I say karma because I believe that karma is literally a choice. We know out of body the right choice to make because it feels very obvious, but we choose as a soul to come into this dense experience where we don't know obviously what the right choice is. And yet when we choose ourselves, we actually choose others, because the more we find enjoyment, fulfillment, and happiness within, the more we can spread that out. So Pisces, while initially these planets may be a little startling for you, they're actually here to work for your highest and greatest good. So I hope you'll enjoy that. All right, that's it for me for Pisces. Please join me Sunday mornings, 11 a.m. Pacific time, where we traverse the transits and we get the angels' advice. I do readings with the angel cards and the tarot cards. And then please like, please subscribe, please hit that notification bell, because there's going to be a lot more content coming out. I'm getting more and more passionate about my renegade view of astrology and shifting our inside the box view of these planets and allowing them to expand as we are also expanding. All right, Pisces, thank you so much. I'll see you soon. Peace out.